Hey everyone, it's Lisa with Are You My Cousin? And I'm here for our weekly genealogy chat. And I'm excited to be able to join you again today. We had an extra one yesterday, so if you missed that one, feel free to go back and check that one out. Pat Zale from Dream Vacations joined me, and we shared about our genealogy cruise that's coming up in June of 2022. But I'm happy to be able to join you again today and talk about more genealogy related topics and all that great stuff. So if you are just joining me, let me know in the comments. Maybe you share something you've been working on. Maybe you've had a genealogy win this week. Would love to hear that. Or if you just want to tell me where you're watching from, that's perfectly fine too. I am coming to you from my office here in North Carolina. And if we are just meeting, if this is your first time finding me here on YouTube or Facebook in a live, welcome. I'm excited to have you here. For those of you who show up every week, I really do appreciate you guys and the support that you guys show me each week by joining me and joining in on the discussion. Again, if you are new, welcome, and feel free to ask questions in the comments as we go along. I do see those. I can answer those as we go along. I want to make sure that we're getting your questions answered and that we can help you there as well. So, hey, Flo is from Oregon. Hey, Deb, good to see you again from Colorado. Yay. And Kathy is from Northern Ohio. So welcome. I was trying to think because I wanted to share with you. I thought I really should share with you guys some of the genealogy stuff I work on when I'm not actually online, right? And I thought, I realized I haven't done a ton of my own personal genealogy recently. I need to get back to it. I'm still working on my ancestor, Joanna Barrett, and I may have picked up another clue along the way to test out, a theory to test out. So I'll be testing that out hopefully in the coming future, near future, I hope. Hey, Kim from Oklahoma and Colleen from North Idaho. Wonderful, wonderful. But I actually have missed doing some of my own genealogy. You probably know, I think I even missed sending out my email this week. And part of that is because unfortunately in our family, we did lose a family member last week. And so we're just, it's just family time basically. So kind of taking a step back to kind of regroup, and we are able to move forward. So here I am today to talk with you. So excited that you are here. And today what I really wanted to share with you about has to do with some genealogy travel. And I know the world's kind of opening back up. We're starting to get into travel. And one of the things I wanted to share with you was a recent trip that I took with my husband down to Charleston, South Carolina. Now, Charleston's a wonderful place to visit. And he was on business down there, so I tagged along and really enjoyed exploring historic Charleston. Now, I have done this in the past, but I did it with a different eye this time. I did it from a historian's perspective. I did it from a genealogist's perspective. And to be honest, I have no ancestors in that area. And that was fun for me, actually, to explore an area and look at it and think, what can I learn without actually really not having a background in this area when it comes to history and the people who live there and all of that good stuff. So I wanted to kind of share with you some of the things that I did and some of the things that I try to do when I visit historic areas or just areas where my ancestors lived in general to improve my own research. And so I wanted to share some of that with you, and I would love for it if you guys chime in as we go along. Feel free to do that, and we can talk about that and talk about different things. But one of the things, this is actually an area that we call heritage tourism or heritage travel. And for me, frequently it is about connecting to the ancestors. If I'm going, I can do one of two things. I can oftentimes visit a place. I have a big trip once travel does fully come back. I do have a big heritage travel where I'll go and tour the places and locations where my ancestors lived over in England. I'd say most of my lines, if not almost all my lines, go back into England and into the UK. And so I have a large trip plans where I can go and actually go to specific places I've researched out, their towns and things like that I can actually go to. And I think there are actually even some ancestral homes that are still standing. So there's that kind of travel. But in this case, I was in Charleston, which is, I don't have any ancestors, but I wanted to learn more about the Southern culture. Now, I've grown up in the South. I've grown up in North Carolina. I know a lot, I've lived in the South all my life, and I've researched Southern ancestors. And so I have a really strong background in that, but I also recognize that I'm missing some of the pieces that might pertain to that. So in this case, as a purely heritage tourist, kind of without having a specific ancestor in mind, it was all about the social history. Now, you guys know, if you followed me over the last year, I talk about social history a lot because it is so important. It is crucial to our genealogy research and understanding our ancestors, I think, anyway. So that is really when I went into Charleston, I'm looking at the social history. I needed to understand the different groups of people. I needed to understand the different faiths. I needed to understand the African American community. I needed to understand, the wealthy landowners that were there, those who have, those big, beautiful houses and all that. I needed to get a better background of that. I needed to understand the topography of Charleston and the way the rivers come in, the Ashley River and the Cooper River, and you've got the ocean there, and the impact of things like hurricanes. I needed to understand that. And by getting my eyeballs on it and walking the streets, I got that sense. I got a clearer sense of how that might impact the ancestors. So with that in mind, how did I go about preparing? What did I do? So what did I do when I was there? I take walking tours. Now, if you haven't had a chance to do that when you travel, either pre-COVID or as you get back to traveling, hopefully once things settle down, I highly recommend taking a walking tour or a bus tour, something, but a good tour. And I like to find independent tour operators or that have local knowledge. Maybe they've lived in that area for many, many years, or they've grown up in the region, because they have kind of that, they have a deeper understanding, I think, and they can really answer questions and kind of help you get through. So one of the things that I did, there's a bookstore down there called Buxton Books in Charleston, which is a fabulous bookstore, by the way. And so I took a walking tour that they offered called The Lost Stories of Black Charleston by Damon Fordham. Now, Damon is a writer, he's a historian, he's an educator, and he's also a licensed tour guide for Charleston. He's lived there all his life, and he is a fabulous storyteller. And the stories that he shared are invaluable to me as a researcher, because he was telling us the stories of the African American ancestors who were there, enslaved as well as free, and all the kind of the nuances that you don't pick up from history books. You don't pick up by always focusing on perhaps maybe some of the more famous individuals, but he had a lot of stories of individuals, and that was, I found, to be very impactful, to be able to understand what their life looked like. What did their life look like on Tuesday morning when they woke up? And these types of things. So this was really important to, I felt like, my research to give me that understanding. And he made a really interesting comment at one point, and I so agree. He said, you can know the history of a building. You can stand outside those buildings and know the history of the building, but you don't know the stories that happened inside them. And it's those stories that, as a genealogist researcher, as a family historian trying to document my own family, it's the stories within a building, within a community, that I want to know. I find that's where the connection is. And that's what I particularly like. So that's sort of my take on social history. It also helps me understand, if I understand what a community was dealing with, then I understand a little bit more maybe why somebody left. Charleston has had a history of hurricanes, as we do here in North Carolina, South Carolina, and the Southeast. And so it was really unique to stand there and really think about it from that perspective. If somebody was living in the area and there was a hurricane, then what if they left? Where would they have gone? What types of work were they doing in Charleston? And what types of work might they find somewhere else that was similar or in a different city? So it was just it kind of gave me pause and a way to think about that. Not to mention, just amazed at the fortitude between the hurricanes, tornadoes, and the earthquakes that happened down in that region. My gracious, those guys are hardy stock, that's for sure. So I do encourage walking tours because you can find them on all different things. Now, if you've never taken a walking tour, you got to do it next time you get out. I haven't done one of these in quite a while. I did, my husband and I've done these in New York, and they're so good, several years ago. And we were able to, we had a licensed guide with us, and we stopped in different areas in New York, and we tasted traditional foods. So we had some wonderful, I don't know what you call it. They're like the rice balls from one of the Italian markets. And we've tried dim sum, and we've tried all kinds of just, the French macarons, and then a very typical pizza, all in one tour. You can, really fill up on those, but it gives you a way to taste some of those traditional foods. You can certainly do those in places in Charleston, in the South. A lot of times if you're looking at Southern foods, so you could try different Southern foods that are down there, that type of thing. I did not take one of those tours this time. Just wasn't quite comfortable with it yet, but yes, the Southern food tours can be quite unique and quite good as well. So I'd encourage you to kind of take some of those. So if you have an ancestor, maybe your ancestors were Italian immigrants to New York. Well, next time you're in New York, try a food tour through the Italian neighborhoods. You will love it. It's wonderful. Fabulous. So that's what I like to do. I try to get into in on those types of tours. So I did the Lost Stories of Black Charleston with Damon Fordham, and I also just a good basic history. I went through free tours by foot for a history walk of Charleston, and those are really, they do a wonderful job in giving you a good tours as well. And they can have some very specific tours, or they can do a broad history tour. So I do like that company, the Free Tours by Foot. They're in multiple cities around the world, and they offer a really good tour. I've never had a bad one. They've been fabulous. And I love it because they're local, so you can ask them questions, and you can get some of that local knowledge that you might not get otherwise. And here's the deal. With these Free Tours by Foot, even if you don't travel for whatever reason, you're not able to travel, they have virtual ones, and you can take part in virtual tours. Sometimes they're live virtual tours, and sometimes they're just pre-recorded tours that you can do, or they'll have GPS walking tours you can do. So you really, whatever level you're at, you can take that and learn a ton. So I would encourage that, definitely. The other thing that I would encourage you to do that I like to do, we are genealogists, right? And we love books. So I like to find the local bookstores. And because when you find the local bookstores, you can find some of those unique stories that or books. You can find some of those unique books about the region that you might not find other places, or even know to look for in other places. So when you go into some of these smaller independent bookstores, particularly in the historic areas, you can sometimes find these oral histories that have been written up. You can find little books on the traditional stories. You can the legends of the area. I've seen books on the medical care for a certain group of people in a certain area. You can find histories on the cemeteries. You can find histories on the tombstones in the area. You can find books on pretty much anything, and they have a good collection because a lot of times they'll specialize in those, and they have those in the region. They'll also oftentimes have local authors who will come in and do talks. So I always check to see if they're having any events with local authors, local historians that I could actually participate in while I'm there as well. You find some really fantastic books. In fact, I picked up, David Fordham is a writer, and so I did pick up a book of his stories as well, so that I would have that for reference in the future when I research. And again, you guys know, when you're looking at these types of books, you're not necessarily going to, you're really probably not going to find your ancestor. One time I found my ancestor listed in a book. That was an exciting time. But for the most part, no, you're not going to. What you're looking at is understanding how they lived, and understanding what were the influences happening around them that impacted their decisions. And so sometimes the trick is finding that type of information, because it's not always readily out there, but you usually can find in some of these smaller bookstores, they'll dedicate a regional section, and they tend to be deeper and richer, I think, than say the chain stores that have those books as well. All right, so why do I tell you all of this stuff about traveling? Because I know I'm not in the records, I'm not showing you all of that, but I really want to encourage you to use all of your senses when it comes to researching your ancestors. Researching in the records, absolutely, that's what we do. That's how we make those connections and get that. But if you want to connect to that heritage, if you want to understand your ancestors on a deeper level and perhaps start to make inroads on some of those really hard brick wall research problems we have, we need to understand that ancestor as a person. We need to understand their motivations. We need to understand them at that level that, they woke up on Thursday morning and this is what they did. So we need to have that kind of level of understanding. We need to understand what they ate for breakfast. I always tease and say, okay, I need to know what my ancestors had for breakfast. And if I don't know, I haven't finished my research yet. And so, but that's the level at which I want to know them at. And so I started to recognize that maybe I didn't know where my ancestors lived. Maybe I couldn't go to where they lived, but I could go to similar populations and I could learn from them as well. I could learn these bits of information from other places as well and start to put the pieces together. So I absolutely encourage you to try some of this out and check it out. It's fun to do. I mean, I personally like to travel, but there's something about seeing what your ancestors saw with your own eyes that's kind of gives you a perspective you might not get before. To give you an example, I have ancestors, guys know I do a lot of South Central Virginia research, and I had gone and visited a family, some cousins that they were new to me. I had never met them, but they were so gracious. And then when I left the nursing home where I was visiting the matriarch of the family, they gave me they hand drew a map on the back of a menu and said, if you follow this, when you pass this is where the old home place is. When you pass this, the next corner, you'll find that's where the service station was your great grandfather used to work at. When you pass the bridge, well, that's the bridge the boys used to jump off of into the river. So they had this thing laid out, and I had this perspective of distance and what they were seeing and what the terrain was like. It was really an amazing, I can't quite explain it because it wasn't a concrete experience as much as the perspective on distances from town to town, from house to house, from where the church was located and what area it covered. It was just a really interesting process to go through and see. I also had the opportunity to see a really big thunderstorm rolling through. So that was not the fun part, but I did get to see that. So I'm curious, let me know in the comments, have you guys done anything like this? Have you done some of when you travel to areas, do you do some of these types of tours with an eye of looking at it through a genealogist perspective or a historian's perspective? I'd be interested to hear maybe some of the places that you have gone, some of the places you want to go. Those are always fun to kind of see what you can do. Other things my husband and I have done, we've done tours up in the, what is it called? I just blanked out. We've been up at like the Tenement Museum and up in the New York area so that we could see where his ancestors lived and where they came in, because they came in. He had some come in through Ellis Island, so certainly we've done that. I have, as I said, a big trip planned for England, in the UK, so that I can touch base with my ancestors there. And I'm getting ready to sneeze. Hang on. Excuse me. I was outside working in the yard this morning and excuse me, stirred up some stuff apparently. So yes, so those are some of the places that I want to go. I've got some other places that I'm hoping to get to along the way. They tend to be pretty much crossroads, crossroads in the middle of, rural Virginia, rural North Carolina that I'm looking forward to going to. So those tend to be more day trips, thank goodness. So that's what I'm looking at. Now I would, I wanted to give you, if you're interested in traveling and heritage travel or anything like that, I do have an article over on the website. Let me put that in chat for you guys. You guys, I would encourage you to go check it out and see what you think. So that's there. It's just kind of all about the basics of getting into heritage travel, what you can see from it, what you can get from it. Oh, thank you, Nicole. Appreciate that. So that you can kind of see, you know, how to get started and how to go about doing it as well. So there is that. I did want to tell you guys a couple of announcements that are happening over at Are You My Cousin? What's kind of happening in the world. So I had been mentioning the last couple of weeks to be watching for a masterclass on identifying individuals and family photos. I have actually postponed that. That was originally going to be September 28th, but given just everything going on and the recent passing of someone in our family, I have just decided to postpone that until October so that I could really focus on it and make sure that is a very quality masterclass that I give you guys. So sit tight if you were watching for that. It is coming, but it will be in October and not in September. I mentioned the cruise earlier, so that if you guys missed that yesterday, I'll pop that link in the comments below as well. If you are interested in learning any more about the Alaskan cruise that I will be going on and Are You My Cousin is taking, it will be, hang on, I can't talk and type at the same time. You guys know me well enough. Here we go. So Pat Zale is a longtime Are You My Cousin reader, and she is also a cruise specialist and approached me said, what about doing a genealogy cruise up to Alaska? So we are going to be doing that in June. And so I've put that link in there. So if you want to go to her website, you can see more about that. And we also did a Facebook Live yesterday. And so you can check that out on the Facebook page as well. And so there you have it. I wanted to ask you guys a favor, though. If you have an idea or an interest in learning a little bit more about heritage travel or virtual travel in like a specific country. So for instance, if you know that you have ancestors who come from a certain area in Germany, for instance, and you're interested in learning about maybe how to do a virtual travel or what might be available so that you could learn some of the social history by seeing the sites, by maybe taking some virtual tours. If you're just wanted to kind of learn about some of the resources that are available to you for virtual travel to really kind of make some just deeper connections with your ancestors and your family history, or to help to learn a little more about the social history in order to build up your research and maybe get some new clues for your genealogy research, let me know in the comments where that could be, because I would be happy to create some YouTube videos, some Facebook videos for that. And I can actually show you how to create those types of virtual tours for yourself and where you can find those resources that would help you out. I'd be happy to do that. Just let me know in the comments if that's something that you guys might be interested in, and if so, which country, city, region, really wherever is fine. So, all right, let me check the comments over here. Danny says, he said, my sister and I frequently visit various locations in Southwest Ohio and Northern Kentucky, seeing things related to your ancestry. I know, isn't that wonderful, Danny, when you can actually physically go to those places? That actually kind of reminds me when one Memorial Day, this has been many years ago because my son was quite young, and it was Memorial Day, and he said, Mom, do we have anybody who fought in the wars? And I said, well, yes, we do. Go put your shoes on. We're going on a field trip. So I took him and drove. It was really just like 10 minutes from our house in downtown area. And we stood, there was this big rock, a huge rock, and it was had a plaque on it. And it's the site of the original Wake County Courthouse that was stood there in 1771, or right after, because Wake County became a county in 1771. And that was the site of the courthouse. Well, that is also the site where men met to march off to fight in the Revolutionary War. And our ancestor did. I mean, he talks about it in his pension records. And so we know that he was there. And so my son thought that was so cool. And so we were standing at this rock and he's like, oh, this is really cool, Mom. And so then I turned him and I said, now, do you see the railroad tracks? There were some railroad tracks about, I don't know, a block away. And he said, yeah, I see the tracks. And I said, okay, well, that is where my great-grandfather, your great-great-grandfather, got hit by a train. And my son's eyes got really big. He went, whoa, Mom, that's cool. And I was like, okay, got hit by the train. The man was fine. He lived to be 103. But my son actually found that cooler than the fact that he was standing where his sixth great-grandfather marched off to work. But we didn't know that was actually there when I started genealogy research. It was kind of cool to be able to share that with him. Hey, Patricia, you said you went back to New Jersey last year to visit the Great Falls National Historic Park in Patterson. I have heard of that. I've not been there. Your dad was born about 3 blocks away, and the area was his playland growing up. It was a rainy day during COVID, so you had the place to yourself, I bet. And your great-grandparents were child laborers in the mills that are now part of the museum. What a wonderful experience that you were able to do that, Patricia, because yes, to be able, if they were in the mills, and I have heard about the mills that were there before. So to be able to go into the museum and learn about what your great-grandparents, what their life was like. You learned what life was like on a work day for them. You learned what it was like to get up on Tuesday morning and it was a mill, to go to the mills. So wonderful. That's a great example. Absolutely. Deb, oh yeah, you're interested in the virtual. Perfect. Hey, Barb, you said it'd be great. Germany would be awesome if I can make it happen. You know what? I can make it happen. Give me a couple weeks, but I can make those types of things happen. So that'll be exciting. I would love to do that. I've not done Germany before. I know there's a previous Facebook, YouTube live where a travel blogger came on and did one for Ireland. If you guys remember, that was a really cool one. Diane's all for Germany as well. Perfect. I'm actually excited about that because, guys, I have no German ancestors. So I'm excited to dig in and see what is there. And I have a friend who does have a lot of German ancestry, and I'm sure she can help me out as well, help us out and make sure we don't miss anything. So yeah, perfect. Be glad to do that for you guys. I think it's a lot of fun. All right, guys, wonderful. I will just want to let you know there is no Facebook, YouTube Live next week. I will be actually out of town. I'm heading down to spend some family time in Mississippi. It's going to be a really fast trip, but that's okay. And but then I will be back and be able to join you guys again the next week. So have a great day. Thanks so much for joining me. I will look at, if you were watching this on a replay, feel free, go ahead and add into the comments if there's, we've got some votes for Germany for virtual tours and learning about social history. Feel free, continue to pop those into the comments. I'm happy to take care of those things and add them to the list. So thank you, Flo. I appreciate that. Yes, I am looking forward to the journey, but at the same time, it is a bit bittersweet. So, but excited that I can spend some family time kind of during this, kind of sad time in our family. So looking forward to seeing and supporting family members that way. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you soon. Bye, guys.